list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time, and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
Did we have frustrations occasionally with our Ukrainian friends, including President Zelensky? Sure. Did we show that in public when it happened? No, because it's so important that there be a clear united front. And you can't lose sight of the fundamental, which is there's an aggressor, right, and that's Russia. There's a victim, and that's Ukraine. And it's unfortunate that the focus got taken off of that and on
fair to ask for or try to take rare earth minerals or other kinds of remuneration for our help.
Yes, and in fact, part of the victory package that President Zelensky put on the table in the last 6 months of our administration included us working.
Нет. Час, два, три, четыре, если надо. Столько, сколько нужно президенту Путину.
Sorry about that, guys. Producing on the fly here. Hey, Darin, so one rode her head to another, man. Did the Jesus nut fail? What do you think, man?
Too early to tell, I guess. I think you and I both know that that's one of those things that everybody remembers from flight school.
Yeah.
And of course, with that particular aircraft, there's a couple other things that are always worthy of note when it comes to how temperamental it can be, but also how reliable it can also be. So if the Jesus nut failed, that would certainly explain a lot of things. There's a couple other options on the table, too, that I think we got to wait and see.
So that was a Bell 206, and you've got about 1,000 hours in that. I mean, you bring a whole lot of insight. So, I had some time on the UH-1, but not that aircraft. So that's a twin engine, am I right? Or the
206, no.
Oh, okay. So it's very similar to the basic Huey frame then, just upgraded across the board, I would assume.
Yeah, this is basically in Vietnam what we would have called an OH-58 Alpha Charlie, sort of an intro level package to this. This, of course, been multiple upgrades. This is a bigger version. In fact, there's a version of this that is or was a flight school, an Army flight school trainer for many years that I also flew then. So,
So it was a Jet Ranger essentially. It wasn't the Huey chassis. I was
Right.
mistaken. Okay, my mistake. I had the nomenclature wrong. So, well, then tell me what kind of does this happen in that aircraft? I mean, have you seen this before, like this kind of mechanical failure?
have I seen it? No. Has it happened? Yes. Extraordinarily rare, and of course that's a good thing. That airframe has actually been proven over many years, many environments, and I was asked this morning on another outlet whether I would put my family on that aircraft and fly it today. I said, well, yeah. In the end, I didn't have time to say then what I can now, which is, not saying you're not willing to put your family in an aircraft like that and fly it based on its track record is kind of like saying that you're not going to take a trip from your house to the grocery store in your car because there was a traffic accident that killed somebody in the state next to you.
Yeah, I mean, aviation still is way safer than driving a car. Is that still correct statistically?
I think that's been holding consistent for a really long time. And by the way, just like what happened in DC and Philadelphia and elsewhere, I mean, we focus on the bad events, but not the hundreds of good.
Yeah.
I've flown Hudson River in a helicopter. There's a factory in Connecticut that'll build the UH-60s. And I went to pick up my fleet of 30 of those there. And we did everybody who left there would fly right down the Hudson, do the circle around the Statue of Liberty and then across to Colorado. And, a couple things you need to know there, of course, is as always, what's the weather like? And two, there's a lot of tourists and VIP choppers and the executive aircraft. And that's a very busy corridor.
Yeah, it is.
On a swivel, but
kind of a rite of passage to do that loop, I think. I did my aircraft commander upgrade out on Long Island at the Suffolk County base, the Air Guard base there. And we would do that same thing. We'd fly into New York and do the loop around the statue and come back. But you're right. It's a highly, highly traveled area. Well, anything else people should know about the Manhattan crash in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things worthy of note, and that's just to keep reminding people that the aviation track record this year is having a hard time. But having been involved in a lot of aviation incidents over the course of the career, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's a dangerous environment, and all accidents come down to three areas. It's either human, environmental, or mechanical, or some combination thereof. And first impression on this one was that it was a mechanical. We'll see what the evidence points to. But in order for something like that to happen, to where you lose a tail boom, tail rotor, drive shafts, the main rotor system eventually or potentially first, which caused the other stuff to go.
Right.
That catastrophic type of accident in this airframe without hitting a structure or hitting another aircraft could only be caused by something like a transmission failure, shearing of bolts, significant types, even those who are holding the tail boom on, which would be highly unusual, but or in turbulent wind environments, there's a thing with that particular rotor system and how it's designed called mass bumping, which about that. It's possible. High winds were about 20 knots that day from the reports I've seen, and I've usually experienced that or seen it either during start or shut down when the rotor system is going a lot slower. So I think maintenance records are going to help us a lot when it comes to this, as well as compare those maintenance records to the material analysis itself.
So mass bumping, for those non-rotor heads in the audience, it's the rotor system it sits on a mast, and then the Jesus nut holds that rotor system on the mast. And then if the rotor system tilts in an angle that is unsafe, it can actually bump the mast, and that's called mass bumping, which is really dangerous. But the fact that the tail boom came off, I mean, maybe the transmission blew up and threw some gears out and ripped a lot of stuff up. I mean, there's all kind of possibilities. I guess the crash, I'm sure they'll get the carcass up and look at the aircraft itself, and that likely, if it's mechanical, will tell what happened, right?
Yeah, I think between the combination of that and looking at the maintenance records, that's going to be your best shot for any kind of mechanical conclusions, because mass pumping isn't exactly something you're going to record on a black box, except for looking for indicators that have to deal with, of course, with torque and rotor RPM. But,
right.
The other thing that I guess I've said whenever I got a chance to is that there are times when we're just going to have to be able to accept the fact that we may never know some.
Yeah, well, that's true.
These accidents, and same is true with the Black Hawk that crashed into the commuter plane in DC.
Yes.
The central question comes down to, why was the helicopter too high? That's a why question that we still don't know to this day, may never know to this day. And of course, the congressional hearings didn't do the incident justice and address the right issues. So,
well, we'll stay on these stories because aviation safety is really a topic right now that we want to be on top of, and we've got the staff to do that. You and me and others have history in this business. So, welcome to the SCIF. It is April 11th. I'm L Todd Wood, your host. He's Darin Gaub. He's a contributor everywhere. You'll see him on Fox and Newsmax, but he's also he's the editor of the Montana Sentinel.press, and also co-editor on armedforces.press. So we really enjoyed Darin's expertise across the network, and we're looking forward to seeing more from Darin. So today we have General Paul Vallely on in the second hour, and Martin Elizalde on AI and tariffs toward the end of the second hour. He missed yesterday. We're going to try him again today. Here's your mission brief. Chinese parts in the New York Bell helo disaster. We've talked about that. In the past, I was flying HH-3s in Alaska. That was an issue, was fake parts or parts not machined up to specifications or with not good metal quality that could fail. Steve Witkoff's in Moscow. You saw that in the cold open. We're going to discuss that. Made in America, fantastic video from OriginUSA on a former military guys 12 years ago started a plant in Maine to make clothes, and we're going to try to get these guys on. But they made that video with the factory with American workers, and I was fascinated, so I had to throw that up there. China yells uncle on the tariffs. We'll delve into that, and then Blinken, the undertaker, blames Trump for the war and all the problems. Just amazing that he would have the gall to do that. We'll be right back on the SCIF right after this break.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have a card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's go 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker stealing all the applicants.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Please support our sponsors, alppouch.com/CDM. If you're a Zen user, get off the woke product and buy the Alp and support free media. So, Darin, you have what? Tell us about your career. You were 20 plus years in the Army, Apache pilot, am I right?
Not Black Hawk guy.
Oh, okay.
But I have flown the Apache.
Okay.
No, I started out enlisted actually in the infantry, and then went up to Fort Myer, Virginia, became part of the Army's Honor Guard. Got out of that, joined the Montana National Guard, and went to college intending to go into business world. Found out that wasn't for me. Got an ROTC scholarship. Kind of got aviation on a dare because they said it couldn't be done from our university. So challenge accepted. Became an aviation officer, and then retired 20 plus years later out of a battalion command running task forces all over Europe. So flew the Black Hawk, flew the Apache, flew the Chinook, flew the Kiowa Warrior, flew the Bell Jet Ranger equivalents for both Vietnam era and more modern era, a couple fixed wings, and now I fly a chair, and that's okay. But besides what you already listed as far as the working on the media, I'm the state director for the State Freedom Caucus Network in Montana, and generally making life painful for Democrats, rhinos, uniparty types, whatever you want to call it. Happy to do it.
You're a classic example of doing a lot with a little. I mean, you're making a huge impact in Montana, and the Montana Sentinel has definitely got some heads turning out there, like some of the other CDM papers. I went into the Army Guard when I got out of the Air Force because I wanted to keep flying, and they busted me down to first lieutenant, so I had to drop in rank just because the service changed. But then I get orders in the mail. You're now the commander of the aviation company in Hunter Airfield, and it was a Chinook unit. I was in Atlanta, and that was in Savannah. I'm like, dude, this isn't going to work. So I can't be like going out for hard landings in the middle of the night, driving from Atlanta to Savannah. So anyway, that didn't last long. I ended up being down at Winder. There's a medevac unit down there near Athens for a period of time, but enjoyed my Army aviation brief experience. Let's talk military. Susan Myers, Colonel Susan Myers, U.S. Air Force, or Space Force, I should say, up in Greenland. I find this fascinating that she would have either the gall or the stupidity or just like the criminal intent to undercut the president and the vice president of the United States in their foreign policy. I mean, who the hell does she think she is? She writes an email after Vance's trip to Greenland saying, well, I'm sure you all are shocked, I'm paraphrasing it, at the comments you heard from the vice president, but he doesn't speak for me, or something like that. I mean, where does that come from, man?
The first thing that comes to mind is bye, Felicia, as always.
Yeah, for sure.
That old rule about, type when you're angry, but never click send when you're angry.
It's kind of like drunk texting, right?
Right. It's like, this is probably not a good idea. But I mean, this is just an example of what's going on all over the place, in the military, out of the military. I mean, frankly, there is a bright light that is shining on the military right now, showing how, when you say things like, deep state, woke, weaponized, all these kinds of terms, that the so-called apolitical military is anything but.
Yeah.
Because that headline is sitting there right next to, hundreds of children in the Department of Defense school systems walking out in protest of Trump, around the globe. You're like, okay. I gave a speech recently where I used Sun Tzu's quotes, paraphrasing, about how you never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Yeah, but I added on a second part of that, which is that doesn't mean you don't record it and make it public.
I just found that, I mean, either she knew she was going to get fired and just said, I'm a deep state, plant and I'm going to just do this because I know I'm going anyway. Or like you said, she was very angry and just didn't think, but she's a full bird colonel. I mean, you don't do things like that. So just
Greenland should make you angry, though. I mean, in some cases, that's not exactly on the list of sought after posts for most people. You know the saying, Greenland isn't green and Iceland isn't ice. So
yeah, no kidding.
I
spent 3 years in Alaska. So I know exactly what she's talking about. Weekends at Fairbanks, Alaska is not that much fun unless you can get to the Moose Creek Lodge. That was fun. But so, wow. So we'll see what happens with her. Where do we go from here with the military to try to get rid of this stuff? I mean, it's obviously still there, right?
Yeah, it is. And the best thing I can tell you is I was asked about the firing of the NSA director on a Newsmax hit recently. And I said, that's a great start. I need about 350 more of those, please.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think that's what you have to do. And because the problem is such that you have to kind of have big solutions for big problems. And you can't do the norm. You can't just wait for time to happen and people to change out, because the same generals, I mean, I'll use the example of General Donahue, from Kabul, who now in charge of the European Command. This is a guy I knew as a brand new 1-star. So that's just how it works. Once they get to that point, they just keep moving on up. Find the next, whatever you want to call it, useful idiot or fellow traveler in uniform, and keep promoting him and let them adhere to the agenda. Well, you have to just pull that out root and stem. And the best way to do that is to say, you know what? Get rid of all the generals. I know this is a big, broad brush.
Yeah.
But bring them out of retirement, as we've just seen with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs recently approved, or speed up promotions for those who've proven themselves worthy. And by the way, 8,000 people who were affected by the COVID mandates across the forces are what's public. 80,000 affected is the real number, and all of those people need to be addressed, either promoted as they were supposed to be, or given other options that are fulfilling promises. So when you're dealing with the cancer, you can't leave a single cell. And sometimes you've got to replace it with something else. And
Mark Bashaw, who's, resigned or got kicked out. I forget which it is, but he was persecuted for COVID I think it was Army. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe it was Marines. I don't remember. But, he said today, well, great, she's fired, but now prosecute her for her COVID crime. So I guess she was one of these that was really being aggressive and tyrannical, forcing these young soldiers and airmen and guardians, I should say, that's a new one for me,
right.
To take this, illegal bioweapon, countermeasure. So that's out there. So do you think these people coming up just get to a point where they believe their own bullshit? I mean, and so they think they're invincible, or think they have friends, or what? Let me bring this up. We did an article on the Senate Armed Services Committee with General Langley and General Cavoli, and they were out in front of senators against the president's policy in Ukraine. And then Langley basically said it was the wrong thing to do to get rid of USAID in Africa, because we really need them, their capabilities, and it's going to cause major problems with terrorism. I found that shocking to be from the AFRICOM commander in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, to say that. I mean, obviously the Rhino senator is wanting him to say that, but he said it. So again, that's subordination. Am I wrong?
Yeah, pretty sad. I mean, if you're asked a question, you have to answer it honestly when you're under oath like that, of course. Yeah. But to do that tells everybody that they think that the system is going to continue to reward them for their adherence to that agenda, regardless of who's in the White House. And
exactly,
there should be 2 people right there removed immediately, and replaced with somebody else who can be trusted. And people may say things like, "Oh, we don't have the experience and we don't have the general officers we need." It's like, well, they're there. You're there. You just have to take a little bit of risk and do the right thing. And because you can't assume the risk of keeping those people in those jobs still, because they're selling out the American people in the guise of I don't know, this incessant desire to combat the idea of terrorism worldwide for the rest of history.
Well, yes, he has to say he's under oath. He has to say the truth, but he could always say, I'm not going to go against the president's policies, which he did.
Yeah.
Langley said, well, I'm not going to speak to policy, but then he went ahead and spoke to policy like multiple. It was like, he did that twice. I'm not going to speak to policy, but the policy's wrong. I was like, dude, what do you think you're doing?
The people like, I don't know, maybe you and me, I know I did this in my past too, as a strategic planner and geopolitics guy. There should have been someone sitting next to him with a 3x5 card and a Sharpie sliding it over to him and said, hey, shut up.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Do you have time for one more segment, or do you got to go? How much time?
I've got to get going here.
Okay, no worries. We'll I know you're I think it's your third or fourth interview today.
This is a third. There will be a fourth later, and that's all I know so far.
Excellent. Well, Darin, thank you for I caught you last night. Short notice, and you were good enough to come on. I really wanted your expertise on the helicopter crash, but thank you very much, Darin, and we'll have you back. Take care.
All right. Thanks,
We'll
Todd. Have a good day.
after this break. The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I saw Tony Blinken, former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, give an interview with Aaron Sorkin on CNBC, and I wanted to throw up in my mouth, literally. This guy, I'm going to name him the Undertaker. He literally pushed, along with his fellow neocon friends in the U.S. government and in Europe, pushed for this massive war in Ukraine. There could have been a peace treaty. There could have been security guarantees to Russia. But no, they pushed, and even a few days before the invasion started, which I think was the clincher, Kamala Harris was in, I think it was the Munich Security Conference, telling the world that Ukraine would be part of NATO. That is right on the Russian border, and anyone that has any sense about Russian history, it's right where Napoleon invaded, or excuse me, the Nazis. Napoleon came up from the north, but it's a real sensitive area for the Russians, and I'm not excusing Putin's invasion. I think he should not have done that, but I think in their mind, you have to understand their view of the world, and I certainly do, and I just found what Blinken did horrific. I'm going to play a little bit of his video. We had it in the cold open. I'm just going to play it again, and we'll talk about it.
Did we have frustrations occasionally with our Ukrainian friends, including President Zelensky? Sure. Did we show that in public when it happened? No, because it's so important that there be a clear united front. And you can't lose sight of the fundamental, which is there's an aggressor, right, and that's Russia. There's a victim, and that's Ukraine. And it's unfortunate that the focus got taken off of that and on
fair to ask for or try to take rare earth minerals or other kinds of remuneration for our help.
Yes, and in fact, part of the victory package that President Zelensky put on the table in the last 6 months of our administration included us working with them.
So you heard it there. I mean, he's essentially blaming Trump for exposing Zelensky's illegitimacy by not holding elections, by not wanting to pursue peace in Ukraine. But I'm going to play a few videos of just what Blinken and his crowd have wrought to this country, which I find very warm people and very helpful to me. And I find it abhorrent that he can even go out in public. But I'm just going to show a few clips of what his leadership, in quotes, has brought to Ukraine.
Будь ласка, что я сделал так? Что вы делаете? Ну я работаю. Я работал, стоял. Люди, помогите. Пожалуйста, помоги.
Куда позвонить? Скажи, куда позвонить.
Я не делаю наружу. Вы чуете или нет? Вы сейчас абсолютно ничего.
Я вот вижу, как здесь ему руки ломают. Поставьте ребенка, вы ему руки ломаете, это ребенок.
Вы видите, что он сопротивляется.
Ему нету призывного возраста.
Если нет, он никому не нужен, вы понимаете?
Ну, зачем вы его ломаете?
Если он нарушил закон.
Его
задерживают, потому что он нарушил закон. Не потому что...
Забирай его оттуда. Происходит кража человека, несовершеннолетнего.
So that is another example of recruitment in Ukraine. They give them a little training, and then they go to the front and last about 4 hours. So Zelensky is desperate for manpower. What's happening is a depopulation of Ukraine. I mean, an entire generation has been wiped out. Here's another video. And here's another one. Literally, this guy is one evil person, because he, more than anyone else, pushed for this war along with Victoria Nuland. And I just find it disgusting that he can get out on TV and act like he was doing the right thing. And it's just as bad on the Russian side. and they don't want peace. And here is President Trump trying to get peace in this war, and they're fighting him tooth and nail, because what do they want? They want the war. They want the death. They want the depopulation. They want the land. And you need to understand what's really going on here. It's nothing to do with free Ukraine. We've done nothing to help the people of Ukraine. I had a Ukrainian refugee family in my house for 6 months, maybe 8 months. I don't remember. And they were not for this war. And I don't think if you asked a man on the street, they would be for this war. So the American government, or the Biden administration, I should say, and the neocons that are still left pushing for this war, don't have any desire to help the people of Ukraine, because they've destroyed them. That's just a simple fact. Now you've got the fact that Steve Witkoff, you saw in the cold open, was going to Moscow, and hopefully there'll be some progress in negotiations. This is a third meeting directly with Putin. You saw the videos there of him in Moscow coming out of the hotel, and also the special envoy, I forget his name, who was there as well. So hopefully peace is coming. And in Istanbul, the Americans and the Russians sat down and didn't deal with Ukraine, but they did work out a lot of the embassy structure and restarting of relations between the two nations. And we want that to continue, because the real enemy in my mind is China. Russia is a threat nuclear-wise, but they're not an existential threat conventionally to Europe or anyone else. They just don't have the force structure to invade Europe. They just don't. And if you look at what's happening in Donbass, they still have not been able to take Donbass. Of course, they're against essentially the U.S. government and NATO troops at this point, mercenaries, because all the Ukrainians are dead, or most of them. So we're behind this war. We wanted the war. It needs to end. The killing needs to end. And I'm not going to go away from that point of view. So Witkoff is in Moscow. I hope that something gets worked out, and I hope that peace comes for these people, because it's really disgusting what's been going on. We're going to take another break. Please stay with us. Put us in your daily scan, cdm.press, in your daily scan, morning, noon, and night. I guarantee you, if you get up early by about 7, there'll be multiple stories on CDM that you won't find anywhere else. That's just a fact. So if you want to know what's happening in the world, life's tough, but it's tough if you're stupid. You go into work, you're around the water cooler, you're talking to your boss. You need to know what's happening. So get your information and then watch this show. We're on podcast. You can speed do it in your car 2 times as fast, get through it, and really get the information that you need to know to be the smartest guy in the room. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the SCIF. And we have General Vallely at the top of the hour, and then Martin Elizalde to talk AI in the second hour as well.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world, because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Igor Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and ERA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. We are a newswire. CDM.press is a newswire. We have reporters all over the world. We get stuff all night long. You're going to get information that you won't get anywhere else, as I said last segment. Go in there early and check us out. Check us out midday. It's updated all day long. It's the primer for this show. We're not getting information from, sometimes we do off from other sites or we repost something, but most of our information is straight from the reporters on the ground in the Middle East, in Eastern Europe, and around the world, on the ground in local jurisdictions in the U.S. But support our sponsors. This is very expensive. And Advisor Metals, if you have a portfolio that you want to protect, I mean, the market volatility is off the charts. We're going to talk about that more Monday. But if you have a portfolio in your IRA or cash assets, make sure they're in an asset class that's going to retain its value, like precious metals, we believe, going forward, because there's going to be a lot of volatility and downdrafts as this economy gets restructured, and people are going to go to something that's safe, and that's precious metals, gold, silver, etc. So talk to Advisor Metals. Go to cdmmetals.com, and you can fill out the form there. You get your free guide on investing in precious metals, and you can contact them, Advisor Metals. Fill out the form. They'll contact you, actually. Either way, their phone number's on there. Tell them CDM sent you. Make sure you do that so we get something out of it. But try Advisor Metals and work to protect your IRA or your life's work with precious metals. And I had a lot of requests. We ran Dr. Diaz, his discussion on measles the other day, and a lot of people said that was really informative because I'm a parent. So we had people ask, can you run it again? Because I got somebody else that wants to see it. So they're watching today. So we're going to run this short, I think it's 10, 12 minutes with Dr. Diaz on measles and what you need to know as a parent and how you can protect your child. So I think you'll enjoy this. He's the head of pediatric medicine at the Wellness Company. Well, honored to have with us today Dr. Alejandro Diaz, who is the chief of pediatric medicine at the Wellness Company. Sir, thanks for carving out some time in your busy day to join us. I appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, thank you so much for having me on.
So there has been a lot of misinformation, narrative, everything in the media over this measles outbreak. Did these children die from measles? Did they not? Was it the vaccine? What was it? I mean, what say you? Tell us what people should know about this subject.
Well, Todd, first of all, what I would like to say is so people can recognize what measles is. So measles is a highly contagious viral disease. Actually is one of the most contagious disease out there. And so it can, and what I mean by this is that one case can infect up to 18 people, 18 children or 18 patients. So it's highly communicable disease, and it's a viral disease. It's an RNA virus. It's what we call envelope RNA virus, single-stranded, and it's within the same family of what we call paramyxovirus, and it's in the same family as parainfluenza virus, which is responsible for croup. Everybody now knows what croup is. And it's also responsible for RSV, which is the cause of bronchiolitis. So these are common upper and lower respiratory infections. And measles specifically, I want to go through the signs and symptoms.
Okay.
So measles, it takes about from 7 to 14 days, the incubation period. That means when the patient is in contact with the virus, will develop between 7 and 14 days, the beginning of the symptoms. What are the signs and symptoms of measles? At the beginning, Todd, at the beginning of the disease, it's like many upper respiratory illnesses, like even the common common cold.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with fever, cough, running nose, what we call coryza,
Mm-hmm.
conjunctivitis, which is redness, irritation, and watery eyes. And the fever starts to spike a little bit around the third and fifth day of the beginning of the symptoms. It's something very characteristic, or what we call in medicine pathognomonic of the disease, which is what we call Koplik spots. Koplik spots, you will find, the doctor will find the Koplik spots in the inner mucosa, inner of the mouth. Those are red, kind of red, white, and bluish spots in the inner mucosa. They're very specific for measles. And then we start with the maculopapular rash, which is very characteristic. It will start beginning in the face, spread down to the neck, trunk, back, arms, legs, and feet. And then at the beginning of the maculopapular rash, which is very characteristic, we can see an increase, a spike in fever, and it can go up to 104 and sometimes 105 Fahrenheit,
Which is high, right?
which is exactly, which is very, very, I'm sorry, which is very, very high fever.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the signs and symptoms of measles. Let me tell you for the audience, which is very important. I am a pediatric allergist, immunologist, and global health specialist. I've been trained in different parts of the world, and I've been traveling the world, giving conferences and attending to different hospitals. I've been in practice for over 32 years, and I haven't seen a single case in my life, not even one case. Why I know? Because when you go to medical school and residency program and so on and so forth, you have to know the diseases. So I read it, but I haven't seen to this date, which is April 8th, 2025, I haven't seen a single case. What's going on right now, and as you know, Todd, we've been having outbreaks of measles for centuries.
Well, they used to have parties, right? The parents would get people
Exactly.
together for their kids to have it. It wasn't that serious, right?
Exactly. So we've been having outbreaks for centuries. And, the license of the vaccine, the first vaccine ever of measles was just about 1963. And then it was with one shot. 26 years after that, which was roughly 1989, we had an outbreak in the United States. Just roughly about 660 kids had measles at the time. Then the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, ACIP, and the American Academy of Pediatrics got together because obviously that was an outbreak. I mean, 55,000 kids, when at the time there were roughly less than 15 million kids under the age of 15 years. So it was a huge outbreak. They decided to start with the second dose. But my question will be for everybody, and this is the question that we have to ask. What happened between those 26 years? That's one question. And then we'll continue. So we had the outbreak in Ohio in 2014, Disneyland 2015, and then Minnesota 2017, and now we have this outbreak. Let me tell you, Todd, that the mortality rate worldwide, it's 0.1% for measles. It's important to know that. So, and let me put it in perspective.
And that's very low, correct?
It is very low, 0.1% of mortality worldwide, because we're tracking virtually all over the world because I'm in global health. And just to put it in perspective, this is important for everybody to understand. We have in the United States just roughly between 6,000 and 53,000 deaths of influenza virus each year.
Yeah.
For example, the last couple of years after the what I call the COVID operation, there has been roughly between 22,000 and 28,000, depending on the year. 22,000 to 28,000 deaths, unfortunately. And Todd, as a doctor,
what is that mortality rate? Do you know percentage-wise, approximately?
Well, you have to divide it, with the population, but it's very low. It's very, very low. But as a pediatrician, as a father, and just as a human being, every single death for me is shocking. For me, it's terrible.
Of course.
As physicians, we try to keep everybody safe as much as we can. I am, very sad to know that unfortunately these beautiful children, they died. I cannot say with measles or for measles. That's a different story.
So I guess my question was, is the mortality rate higher for the flu or measles? Because you were talking about
it's definitely lower for measles.
Okay.
Much lower.
Yeah.
Definitely. So coming back again to the cases that we've been seeing. So right now the HHS has confirmed 642 cases. The vast majority of cases, roughly around 499 cases, have been in the state of Texas. But if we compare with other outbreaks before, the one that I mentioned, and many more worldwide, there's still outbreaks all the time. What is different from this outbreak than other outbreaks? The only difference that I can see from the sociological standpoint and the healthcare standpoint is that we are just coming out of a pandemic.
Sure.
We're just getting out of a pandemic, what I call the COVID operation, that shut down the world. Everything stopped. Everything changed after the COVID operation. So we have that in our minds, and now it's chaos for us. So it's important to stay calm, obviously, to recognize signs and symptoms, to be aware specifically and especially for new pediatricians, new family, younger, junior family practitioners, and doctors that are on the front line of emergency rooms, so they can recognize early enough signs and symptoms of measles. And you know what the treatment has been forever? I mean, over the last many decades, supportive care.
Yeah.
Supportive care. So if we have a patient with measles, back in the day, the hydration, vitamin A supplementation, proper, food and basically the supportive care. That's what everybody was treated with.
So do you know if these kids died from measles or from complications? I've heard pneumonia, or like Dr. Corey is out saying it wasn't measles, it was something else associated with the disease.
Todd, to be honest, I cannot say that.
Sure.
I don't have the tools. I don't have the right information. I wasn't there. I don't know. What I can tell you is that I'm terribly sorry for what happened.
Of course.
And that's in my heart.
Sure.
What I can tell you is that the most common, let's say, the most common complication of measles, it's dehydration, which is very common in many other illnesses, as you know. The number two, it's pneumonia, which is extremely well treatable if you started early on.
Right.
And then very rare cases is what we call encephalitis. So it's important for physicians, especially young physicians who hasn't been in contact with any case before, that they can recognize signs and symptoms, so they can treat early enough, and they can communicate with the parents of the kid and the community exactly what to do, because information is power, Todd.
Of course.
Would you agree?
Oh, of course. Yeah, well, it's what, if we would have known more or been allowed to know more during the COVID, a lot of people would have been saved, I think. But it was information warfare, in my opinion.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Is what we call misinformation, malinformation, and unfortunately, a lot of mass formation.
Yes. So what is the wellness company, if somebody came to the wellness company via, say, a video chat with a membership or whatever, how would you, what would be the protocol, for a bad word, I guess, but what would be your procedure to deal with the disease if a child
well, that's a tough question, Todd. That's a tough question, to be honest. let me tell you what I would do as a pediatrician, and I am not here to give any medical advice. But,
Right. I'm just,
I'm
more interested in the process,
Yes, I'm traveling constantly all over the world. But I think just to have the right piece of information and understand exactly what is going on, that will give us a lot of information. That will give us a lot of peace of mind. And because information at the end is power, that it will give you the power to take the right decisions. And one of the things that I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt is that way back before 1963, when the first measles vaccine was licensed, the mortality rate, just by itself, just by nature of the betterment and the improvement in healthcare, it was dropping.
Right.
It was dropping. So I don't think we have to go into panic mode. What we have to be in is what I call aware mode. Not too preoccupied, but occupied. What we will do. And it's important to talk to our colleagues, talk to our patients that, we have seen this before for centuries.
Yes.
I really think that is very important to mention and to communicate that message.
Interesting. So I guess parents should just monitor and take them to the doc. When should they take a child, do you think, to the physician or contact the wellness company through their video links or whatever?
That's a great question, Todd. That's a great question. Especially right now, we are at the end of spring, and this is when we have high cases of upper respiratory infections, lower respiratory infections, and then we will transition to GI infections and so on. When you start to see specifically your child that it's less than 5 years old and starts with these signs and symptoms, I'm going to repeat it again. High fever, cough, running nose, coryza, and conjunctivitis, which is redness and watery of the eyes. And then it's hard for a parent to see the complex spots, but a doctor will be easy to recognize. Just go to the ER, talk to your primary care physician, to your pediatrician, and they will know what to do. So I think it's very important to stay in touch with your primary care physician, and they will know exactly what to do. But it's important to stay in touch with them. It's to have that kind of support. But also very important, it's to have this information.
Sure. Anything else you want to get out to the public, Doc, before we close up? Anything else on measles?
Well, basically, just to share with everybody that measles, it's a viral, highly communicable disease. It's very infectious, very transmissible. But fortunately, and thank God, it's not that. The mortality rate is very low.
Yes.
0.1%. If we and everybody take the right measures and do what we have to do, like call to your doctor immediately when you start to recognize those signs and symptoms that I mentioned, we will be in good hands with the right doctor and the right healthcare provider.
Excellent. Doc, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're very busy. So thank you. We'll have you back. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stav. You have a great day.
Thank you.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark. But bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another. And I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Sir, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Todd. Always a pleasure.
So I wanted to have you on multiple reasons. I want to talk about the cartels, but General Cavoli and General Langley testified in front of the Armed Services, Senate Armed Services Committee, and they essentially went against the president's policies pretty forcefully. How does a senior military officer get away with that? I mean, to me, they should be removed immediately. What say you?
Well, they won't get away with it. They will be removed. The president's already removed several. Just removed a female colonel for being woke. I think she's out of NATO or someplace. So basically, they're looking at each general officer, senior officer across the board, and those that are not complying with the new rules and regulations, they will be retired early or sent from active duty to retirement.
So General Cavoli, who's the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, he's the head of European forces for the American armed forces. He was rah Ukraine. The Russian army is getting destroyed. Ukraine is much more capable. It was just a lie. I found it, one, conduct unbecoming. I mean, you're lying to Congress, essentially, and then you're going against peace in the region. Do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine conflict?
Well, I certainly do. It needs to come to an end rather shortly. And I understand one of Trump's advisors is in Moscow today. I think Putin's willing to end this thing, and he will keep the 4 eastern provinces that are pro-Russian. I think Zelensky will pass, get off stage, and they'll have to put a new leader in Ukraine. But NATO and the Europeans, not all of them, are still pushing for Ukraine to continue the war. And that's how when you look at NATO and you look at these European countries, most of the people are not for supporting this war. And you remember Moroni of Italy, she says, I'm not sending any Italian soldiers to Ukraine. So they're not in good shape over this thing, but it's got to come to an end very soon.
Well, we played a few clips of the cemeteries in Kiev. I mean, it's just horrific.
Oh, it's horrible.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of young men there. We showed another video of them snatching a guy below draft age off the street.
Yes.
I mean,
that's what
they're pulling.
That's what they've had to do. That's what they've had to do. Yeah, that's how bad it is. And another, I don't know what it is, Todd, but almost 15 million, as I understand, citizens of Ukraine have left Ukraine for other countries.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I know a lot of them here, and I've confronted some of them. They're like, why don't you keep supporting Ukraine? I'm like, dude, it's your country. Get over there if you want to fight. I don't want to send my boys over there, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just unbelievable. This needs to end. I mean, it's sickening, the death. I think it's a depopulation agenda, frankly, because it's death on both sides.
Well, it's a money laundering operation. But Todd, another thing too, I got a report last week that there were 4 Americans in a armored vehicle that were not found. They don't know where they are. Have you heard anything about that?
That's not the one in the Baltics, is it? That went in the swamp?
No, this was actually on the battlefield of Ukraine. I saw a picture of it, and they were missing.
No,
and
I
then,
haven't.
of course, that was followed up by the Chinese mercenaries working for the Russians that were captured by the Ukrainians.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard. Were these guys mercenaries on the U.S. side, or were they
No, they were regular Army soldiers, from what I understand. Of course, we have some over there. They're working in an advisory role,
right?
Particularly how to use the new weapons and advising the Ukrainian forces on that.
Mhm.
But this was like a maintenance armored vehicle that I saw where the 4 Americans were working, probably going out to repair tanks or whatever. Who knows?
I need to look that up. Well, you're a former. What branch were you in? Were you infantry? Okay. What about, I was asking Eric Prince the other day this question. What about all these armored vehicles? I have family that is on an armored vehicle in the U.S. Army, and I'm concerned they're more targets than anything now.
Well, they really are.
Mm-hmm.
How do we, air and on the ground?
Well, the drone warfare and all of that. How do we evolve from that so that these guys aren't sitting ducks?
Well, we've continued with the World War II air-ground operations. We haven't adjusted greatly into the new warfare, which is space. China's into that big time. Mm-hmm. Our Space Command is supposed to be building towards our space capability. So the future of war will be from the air, mainly drones and rockets and missiles and so on. Mm-hmm. And we'll still have ships at sea, of course, to keep open the sea corridors like we're trying to do in the Red Sea right now and other areas. But we're really concerned now about these ports that the Chinese are establishing. It looks like we've taken away Panama Canal from the Chinese, mm-hmm. and it will be in U.S. hands or control. We're trying to get 850 acres off of Chile that the Chinese want for a deep water port called Copia, C-O-P-I-A.
Yes.
And there we want to basically coordinate with the Chilean government to put in a deep sea port as well as an air base or a base and mm-hmm. perhaps a spaceport down there. So that's in the works right now as well.
Well, we have to confront the Chinese Belt and Road for sure. My sense is China's, and I'm getting off the cartel topic that I brought you on, but my sense is China is very weak right now economically, and it's a Ponzi scheme. And so they may lash out. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I think right now, because of tariffs, the Chinese, Xi Jinping and his economists are they're sort of like this. What are we going to do? This mm-hmm. Trump doesn't stop, man. He keeps going on. But Trump understands the Chinese and he knows the art of the deal. And so the Chinese are going to have to adjust. They're not in good shape. The Chinese are the biggest losers on this, and Trump knows that.
Yeah,
their economy is not in good shape. Their housing industry has almost crashed the economy over there. And also, I heard yesterday, these Chinese freighters, ships, transporters, have left Chinese harbors last week, and now the tariffs are on, and they have to turn back or go somewhere. But nobody's going to buy their cheap goods, especially like in Europe or other places. So
Wow.
we're the biggest buyer of these cheap Chinese goods.
Well, I had Michael Yan on earlier in the week. He's down in Panama, and he said his buddy bought a Chinese ladder, stepped on it the first time, and it cracked, and the step went through, and he almost broke his leg. So, I mean, it's just garbage stuff. I mean, that's what I don't buy that crap anymore. I don't buy anything from China.
No, I will not either. And if I have to order anything off Amazon, I'm going to ask them, is this made in China or not? I'm not going to buy any. A lot of the stuff you get on Amazon has been made in China, a lot of the cheap stuff.
Yeah, or it's been shipped to Mexico and made there, and that's what I think Trump is trying to stop.
Right.
Can you hold on for one more segment?
Sure.
Okay. We'll be right back with the SCIF and General Vallely.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine patch.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Sir, where are we on ripping the DEI out of the military, in your opinion?
Making great strides, and all of those officers who've been politicized by Obama and the Biden crew, they're day by day being eliminated or forced to retire. And so even down to the academies now, they haven't replaced the superintendents at our academies yet, who've been guilty of forcing CRT and DEI. I understand there are remnants still like at the Air Force Academy that they need to rub out and take out of action. So it's not over yet, but it was so deeply penetrated in our organizations and in our troops, and some of them bought off on all the wokeism and CRT and DEI, critical race theory. So it's a process. It'll take a while, but I would say within a month or two, it's going to be gone completely out of these organizations.
Wow.
Or the people that continue to support it will be gone.
Well, that's optimistic. Hope you're right. Let's move to Europe, not Ukraine, but NATO. Poland we're talking about pulling 10,000 troops out of Poland. Do you think Trump is kind of withdrawing from NATO at this point or lessening our commitment? What are your thoughts?
Well, since I was in NATO years ago in a division in Germany, we've seen now within the last 10 and a half years a withdrawal of our forces from Europe, particularly from Germany, where we had the bulk of our units stationed, armor, infantry, maintenance, aviation, and so on. So I would think that Trump will do everything he can to withdraw as many of our troops from these forward bases that we don't need anymore, and are very costly, by the way. And so to reduce the Pentagon budget, they're going to have to do that. Let's bring our troops back. Let's establish a strategy that I developed for Trump called the lily pad strategy, which basically is a joint force type operation that we'll use on the cartels, by the way, where we can actually pick our targets that are a threat to the United States, and we can engage them in different ways rather than have all these expensive forward bases. and we can launch from our own land. We can launch from what I call black bases, sea bases that are there, that are put in temporarily in different countries to launch an operation. So this whole new forward joint strikes strategy, as I call it, needs to be implemented.
Interesting. Well, so you think Trump will stay in the alliance, just in a different fashion? Is that kind of what you see?
I think it'll play out over this year, but I think gradually there's no need for NATO anymore. Russia's not going to attack any of these countries. That's all media propaganda. He has no designs to take over a grand empire anymore. And I think he'll be satisfied to get the pro-Russian eastern provinces of Ukraine, and that will be it. Russia is doing better than the Western media reports. It's interesting, Todd. The U.S. media or the Western media, even in Europe, never has a Russian on their television interviews.
True.
Notice, even Fox News, they never bring a Russian on to discuss the Russian side of this whole situation in Ukraine.
Interesting. Yeah.
You have to go to Russian television to watch it.
Russian TV has been calling me for interviews. I'm considering that.
Yeah, I do them. It's a great way to get our exposure over there. But they're the largest media in the world now. A lot of people don't know that. Bigger than BBC, ABC, CBS. I've been in their headquarters outside of Moscow. They have the biggest audience in the world now.
That's because of the diaspora around the world. The Russian-speaking people is essentially.
Well, no, they're actually they broadcast in the languages for their target areas.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
TV is all English speaking. Most of them are for London, by the way. Then you have a whole focus of Russian TV on the Middle East and then on the Far East. So for the Far East, they'll have Chinese, Japanese, and so on. They're on the staff. They have a very large staff of Russian television.
Yeah, yeah. What about Asia? What do you see? And I'll get to the cartels last, but China, we mentioned, may lash out. I mean, they're doing a lot of exercises around Taiwan, throwing up propaganda of landing ships and all this kind of stuff. My sense is they're not strong enough. But if Xi feels like I think Xi could lose power in the next year or two. So where do we go from here in Asia?
Well, we're prepared over there to a degree with the air and land forces we have over there. We still have Marines in Guam, but you have to understand also 3 or 4 of the militaries in that area are some of the tops in the world. For example, the Japanese have a very fine military. South Koreans have a very fine military. The Taiwanese have a fine military. So they're very strong and they're weaponized. And they're watching. Of course, they're afraid too. China's very big, but keep in mind, China hasn't fought a war for a very long time. Though they have a lot of advanced systems in that, but they're not war tried in any way or war experienced. So there's some negatives there with the Chinese armed forces, but they're very powerful, and they've got into space quite a bit as well. Space launch weapons.
You wonder if the weapons that they built with all the failure in their other products. Might just not work very well.
That's right.
So
you don't know until you use them, right?
Well, exactly. And it's not just the weapons working; it's the coordination, it's the manpower, it's the training, it's the sophistication of how to deploy such advanced technologies. Do you think they'll stop? Do you think Trump will cut off the flow of theft from intellectual property and designs of all our military equipment? I mean, you look at the new fighter. I mean, it's insane. It's exactly what we built.
He's actually directed, I understand, our defense industry companies like Raytheon and the others that they really put in all of the barriers that they need to prevent from cyber attacks not only on some of our antiquated computers, as Elon Musk has found in many of our government organizations. They put in these systems decades ago, and they've tried to improve them, but they're none of them like a postal office or whatever are up to date. They can't even talk to each other, and that's why we need a major technological advance on our computer systems. AI will help a lot as well. That's being introduced.
Well, I mean, let's spend some more money.
It'll cost money, no doubt about it. But hopefully, take it from all. Did you see there were 9 office buildings just sold by the government last week?
I didn't see that, but I saw
They
some.
weren't occupied. Nobody was in them working. They're just sitting there. These
Jeez.
massive buildings.
Wow. Amazing.
Excuse me.
Well, let's talk cartels. I mean, there's been a lot of smoke that drone attacks, SF attacks on the cartel leadership and their infrastructure. Where does it stand right now, since the border is closed, and with that conflict, and where do you see it going?
Well, as I understand it, we're conducting daily intelligence operations, surveillance operations on the 5 provinces where the cartels are. They're looking down and they're looking at the traffic, where the movement is coming out of the cartel locations, the factories. So through overhead intelligence and on the ground intelligence, we're building a map now. If we have to go in, which I think we will, and basically take out their ability to operate, and then the Treasury Department to also take out their transfer of international monetary funds in the banking system. So that's going on. So I would think that we'll probably send in some drones, take out the factories, the Reapers, the Grim Reapers that we have. We'll take out the factories and
Like
the locations.
Factories, is that what you're talking about? Or?
Factories, yeah, the factories down there, as well as these compounds that they work out of. We know where they are. We do have special forces down there now working with the Mexican Marinas, who are the Marines, and they're very good. They can be trusted, whereas the rest of the Mexican military is very much
infiltrated
by the cartels, as well as the Mexican government.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll stay on that story. What about Moscow? Witkoff's over in Moscow. The special envoy met with I think Witkoff as well in Washington.
Witkoff, that's right. Yeah, he's there now.
Yeah. So where do you see this? It's the 3rd meeting with Witkoff and Putin directly. Some say Putin is dragging his feet, trying to get more territory. I mean, what say you?
He doesn't want more territory, that's for sure. He only wants the 4 pro-Western provinces that he has under control now. They still have Ukrainian units out there. They still have drones and other airborne weapons being fired at Russian installations, electrical plants, and so on. So Ukraine doesn't seem to want peace. They just want to keep pushing it. So I don't know what's going to happen with Zelensky. If he's replaced by somebody, that would be good, that has some common sense. But the Russians have stood their ground. They've got those 4 pro-Western provinces. That's all they want. They don't want any more. But if you keep pushing Putin too much and you start hitting some of his critical bases, he's going to respond 10 times the capacity that we've seen so far.
Well, the news came out this week. I don't know if you saw the images. I'm sure you did, of General Cavoli and others in Wiesbaden. In their command and control cell, which the New York Times talked about, and then General Zaluzhny, who was the previous Ukrainian commander, now in the UK, probably working with MI6. But he dropped on his Facebook channel pictures of that cell in Wiesbaden with the American forces running the war. And the New York Times said, General Cavoli was on the radio talking to troops on the front line, telling them what to do.
Yeah.
So how do you see that impacting everything?
Well, it impacts it every day. It impacts the ability of the movement towards a settlement. And that's what Trump wants to see. No more killing of all these young men and women on both sides, and civilians. Like you said, the grave sites are immense in Ukraine right now. So it's a day-by-day thing. And if Ukraine comes to its senses, this thing will end. But I think it's on the Ukrainian side right now. Putin wants an end to it. He has other things to do in the world.
I agree. And then we need to be more allied with Russia against China and the rest of the world, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
So, sir, thank you very much. I really appreciate having your insight, and we'll be right back. We're going to have Martin Elizalde, who's going to talk about tariffs and AI. But thank you, sir. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Welcome back to the SCIF. Please support our sponsors. The Wellness Company is one of our big sponsors. You can get their emergency medical kits. Here we are right here. This is the contagion kit. It actually has a nebulizer in it with the steroids, any kind of respiratory problem, all the drugs you would need. This is the travel kit. I use it all the time, actually, when I travel. twc.health/CDM. And you can use CDM as a promo code and get 10% off. I'm going to bring in Martin Elizalde now. Martin is an attorney and very knowledgeable on artificial intelligence. And he's in Buenos Aires, right? In Argentina, correct?
You're right. Miami. Good morning. Yes, quite far away.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. And you have done a lot of good writing on the Miami Independent, which is our Miami paper on technology and AI. And we really appreciate that and appreciate your insight. This is the paper. Tell us about how tariffs will affect artificial intelligence going forward.
Okay, in a very brief commentaries.
Yes.
I think that it's a very complex moment. It's a kind of transactional moment, and it's very difficult to make serious, predictions about it, even in the short time, because we are living a kind of messy times. So it's sad to say that the stocks of artificial intelligence companies are among the biggest losers.
Yes.
So during the last days. But even though it's a complex scenario, I won't panic. I think that the last thing that we can do now is to panic. I think that sit down, wait, study, and see is a good approach. Okay, don't begin to shout, "Oh, the tariff! Oh my God!" Just wait, and in a way, everything is going to settle. But just right now, probably in a few days ahead, probably there will be some rises in the cost. Especially startups, they have to buy servers. That there are a lot of servers that came from China to the United States. So if you're a startup that began making business in the States, and you have to buy a server, probably the server will cost more. And even to the same companies and the big companies that manufacture its own hardware, probably it will be costier, probably. And the cloud providers, it's a possibility that cloud providers are going to pass their their cost down to the something that is have been happening since the beginning of time. It is not nothing new, but the main battlefield, or one of the battlefield, one of the fields. Don't use the term battlefield. One of the fields probably will be the chips market. And as we know, there are a lot of chips that are introducing to the States from China, taking advantages of a lot of things that have happened before. Okay. But it's very interesting, for at least to me, it's interesting to point out that tariffs don't apply to chips as raw materials. If they are introduced to the state as standalone products, they are not going to be targeted by tariff. Something different if they are going to be imported as part of a server, because in this case, okay, you are going to pay more. This is one of the thing that is because everybody is shouting, "Oh, all the chips." No, not all the chips. Only the chips that are unfairly imported to the States are going to be. The other, if the chips enter unpackaged, there is no problem at all. Okay.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. Nobody
do you see manufacturing for chips moving to the U.S.? I mean, in your opinion, in your professional view?
I hope so, because I think that fair competition, is one of the key elements in the innovation. And innovation is a key element in the artificial intelligence field. So even if I strongly, really strongly favor the competition, I think that fair competition is something else. Again, just sit down, watch, and see. It will be a very volatile scenario during the next months. So the less nervous, the less anxious we became is better for everybody.
Well, how does the guy on the street in Argentina think about artificial intelligence? Is it permeating Latin America? Or is
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, Todd, as you probably know, we have so many problems that artificial intelligence is just in the back of our head right now. Surviving is something else. But okay, it was a show. Excuse me.
Yeah, I get it.
It's quite realistic. The approach. Okay, no, it's something that we are going every time. At this very moment, me and my team and I we are working in the effects that the effects that the artificial intelligence actually currently now has in the judiciary system, because judges in Argentina are tending to use more and more artificial intelligence. So up to what point is this okay? Is it good for cheaper and quicker administration of the justice? But on the other hand, you have to be quite. You have to take some precautions, because some steps in order not to use it, at stake. But we're using it, of course. Everybody, and is children, adolescents, teachers, students, judges. It's a so, and maybe it will be a good way to conclude this meeting. Tariff one, with or without tariffs, we are going to need artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So when in the process, which is unstoppable, we face rises and ups and down in prices. I think that this is such a necessary product that it will be, in demand. I never say forever, but in demand during the next.
I understand. While I've got you, one last question. While we're talking about Argentina, what's going on in the country right now? What is the political situation? Or do you want to talk about that briefly?
Well, I don't know how. I don't have the background because it is not my field. I have
Sure.
never been a politician. You know,
Okay.
I am
Yeah,
in
yeah.
another universe, in the real universe. And
Understood.
politician seems to be like Mars or like Martian, you know, sometimes, and they speak in another way, they use another, you never understand what they are saying, you know.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
make a question and they never answer the question. So I really don't
That's
care
fine.
that much, but so
Well,
it's not exactly, you
no,
know.
that's fine. So people can find your writing on artificial intelligence at miamiindependent.com, and we really appreciate that, and love your writing. Been great business insight from outside the United States. So thank you very much, Martin. We'll have you
Thank you.
back
No, thank you,
soon.
you very
Okay.
much. And
Okay.
congratulations for the show. Eh?
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen aircraft. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Give David Cross a call if you have financial issues. If you have a portfolio that, maybe you have a death in the family, you have a sale of a business, you get a divorce. These things happen, and financial issues are something you should take care of, or it's going to make the situation a lot worse. So give David Cross a call. He's our resident financial advisor at CDM us-am.com. And I can guarantee it's just an easy convo, just like all the other sponsors we have. We really trust our people, and we can highly recommend them. So if you need a financial advisor, he's been in the business for decades and can guide you through the potholes, if you will. Well, let's talk China. So China this morning raised their tariffs to 125% to match Trump. But guess what they said? They said, well, this is just a numbers game, and if Trump raises again, we're not going to raise. So essentially, China called uncle. Now, let me bring up that article on cdm.press, and I'll go to the main article. Hold on one second. And here it is. China raises tariffs to 125%, say won't play this game anymore as pressure mounts on Xi. And there's there's a great picture of Chuck Schumer waving the Chinese flag on U.S. soil. But the Chinese are under severe economic pressure from Trump's tariffs policy. And you can read this article on cdm.press on the homepage. And it's something that could force Xi out of power because it's a Ponzi scheme economy. His real estate market is way overheated. They build buildings they don't need, and just to keep the people employed. So when the people stop working, then they have major problems. So today, the foreign ministry said, even if the U.S. continues to impose higher tariffs, it will no longer make economic sense and will become a joke in the history of world economy. But they also filed a complaint against the World Health within the World Trade Organization over the tariffs. Vietnam is looking to crack down on Chinese goods shipped to the United States, their territory, as well as I'm sure Trump is talking about with Mexico. And China said this is the end of the escalation in terms of bilateral trade tariffs. Both China and the U.S. have sent clear messages. There is no point on raising tariffs further, said Zhui Zhang, president and chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management. But the damage is done, and we're decoupling from China in a very short period of time. And I think China is yelling uncle, if you will, and we'll see. But this video from this company we'll talk about in a minute that started building clothes in Maine on American soil 12 years ago. Just a fantastic video they put out in response to the Chinese propaganda. So I'm going to play this again. It was in the cold open, but here it is again. So OriginUSA, this is a company up in Maine, as I said, some ex-military guys, I believe. We're going to try to get them on the show. But what a fantastic response to the Chinese propaganda of a AI picture of a fat guy that can't sew and a bunch of old women that can't sew. But these are young, aggressive, hardworking, in shape factory workers in the U.S. And that's what China fears, but it's what Trump wants and knows is coming. So China is playing a dangerous game here. I do believe that Xi may be weak because if he doesn't keep his people employed, which these tariffs may do, he could lose the mandate from heaven, as they called it in Beijing, which is the what they used to give to the emperors in China. He could lose power, and you see he arrested another guy this morning on a corruption charge. Air quotes corruption. In reality, what's going on is they are scared, and that they could lash out. As I was talking to General Vallely, they could start a war. They could start a conflict somewhere else via proxy forces. They could launch another pandemic, which they've been known to do. Well, that was in conjunction with the U.S. government, but all of this is on the table, so you need to be prepared. So what do you need to do? Make sure you're prepared with the medical kits. twc.health/CDM. Grow your own food. Go to cdmfood.com. Make sure you're resilient with your finances. You can go to cdmmetals.com and check out Advisor Metals to protect your portfolio. You can talk with David Cross. You can go to cdmnutrition.com and get the Nucleo Boost and make sure you have the correct nutrition. If you've got a bunch of canned food in your house and you want to make sure you're getting what you need in a hard time, go to CDM Nutrition and look at the subscription for the Nucleo Boost is cheaper than the monthly buy. But all of these things protect you. And we're big on resilience, and especially the CDM Food with Marjorie Wildcraft. She has a great program. You can get some free videos and free information. But if you want to dig into and really become self-sufficient farmer-wise for yourself and grow your own food, and as she says, in a very small area, even if you're out of shape and old age, you can grow your own food. And Marjorie will help you. cdmfood.com. Wow, been a great show. Martin didn't talk as long as I thought he would. So we're going to be back Monday. The SCIF is Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And on the weekends, we have the Georgia show at 2 p.m. It's also on Wednesday night at 7. But we dig into one of the most important states in the country for politics and for control of the republic, which is Georgia. They got a lot of electoral votes, and it's completely captured by the Chinese. And you may not know that. It's a red state, right? Well, it's not really. So we dig into Georgia, and then we have the Colorado show later in the day. That may switch to a weeknight because people are really busy on the weekends right now, but we'll let you know on that. And we also have the Eurobike show where we bring our guys from Germany and Austria over and have a discussion on what's happening. You got AFD climbing in Germany, now looking to be the strongest party and going up. Are they going to ban the party? Are they going to put people in jail like Marine Le Pen in France? We're in some very interesting times right now. You're living in history, and CDM is cataloging it every day. Just a last push, put cdm.press in your daily scan, daily, Monday or morning, noon, and night. And that helps us. It gives us traffic, but you'll also be the smartest guy in the room. I promise you. We don't put a lot of garbage, up. We put really, our mission at CDM is to bring you high quality news for smart people. That's our mission. We're not out necessarily to get the most traffic with clickbait. We're here to bring you the best news that we can do. And we have reporters literally all over the world. Nobody else is like us. We have 13 digital properties. You can get our no ad subscription and go in there and go from website to website, from Montana to Colorado to Georgia to the Balkans to Eastern Europe to the Middle East, and you don't see any advertisements, no pop-ups, no display ads. People love it. So please check out our no ad subscription, another way you can help us, or just donate. We need resources. We're growing, so support us. But other than that, we'll see you Monday at 10. We'll also catch us on the Georgia show at 2 o'clock today. Me and Bill Quinn will lay it out. There's a lot going on in Georgia, and it's not good. And we're all over it, and they don't like that we're all over it. They don't like us in what we're reporting there. But thank you for joining us on the SCIF. We'll see you Monday.